Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about scene surveys. Whenever we're coming on to any type of scene, typically emotions are running pretty high. People are hurt, people need help, and as individuals who have grown up with television and movies, we're kind of programmed to think of these situations as opportunities for us to be heroes and run to burning buildings and save babies and get kittens out of trees. The reality is that thinking in those terms puts us in a sympathetic response, which triggers kind of this fight or flight response in us as rescuers, which leads to us kind of running into situations, tripping over ourselves, tripping over our victims, missing things, trying to fix all the problems right away. And really that's not what first aid in the wilderness is all about. What we as rescuers want to do is switch our thinking into a parasympathetic nervous system type of response where we can calmly and rationally go through the steps to mitigate all the different issues that might be presenting, those of which we can see very clearly and those that might be hidden. The way to do that is to do a really good scene survey. Personally, every time I've been called on to do any type of first aid in the backcountry, it's always been by someone yelling my name or someone yelling in pain. And what I do myself is I'll stay maybe 30 feet away from what's going on, and I'll put on my gloves and any other personal protective equipment I might have. So that might be a mask, that might be some eye protection. So I'll take the time to put on the gloves because frankly, those gloves are hard to put on. They kind of get stuck to your fingers and your hands, and they're a mess to put on. There's no question about it. And it's for that reason that I intentionally stay out of the situation and take the time to put them on. It gives me an opportunity to go from oh my God, I gotta save everyone, to what is going on. While I'm putting on my gloves, one of the most important things I'm looking to see is whether or not the scene is even safe for me to approach. Because theoretically, you got one person who's injured. That sucks. One person who's injured can ruin a trip, no question about it. But if I rush in and I get hurt, now there's two people. And two people is twice as hard as one person to treat. And on top of that, I'm probably the most highly trained first aider on scene. And after taking this course, you will probably be one of the most highly trained first aiders on the scene. And if one of the most highly trained first aiders on the scene gets injured, that means there's one less highly trained person to deal with the problem. So while you're putting on your gloves and your masks and your goggles, you're checking to see if the scene is safe. In the outdoors, we add stuff like, are there any bears or bugs? Are there any trees that might fall on you? Are you by a cliff? Is there someone who is actively trying to prevent you from doing first aid? Is there an incoming potential flood? Is there, a mudslide? Just all the different things in the wilderness that you gotta be aware of. You gotta add to this list of things to consider before approaching a scene. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not the scene is safe. And if I deem it to be safe, the next thing I'm going to consider is, can I really, really, really quickly, within 5 seconds, figure out what happened? If I can very quickly figure out that the mechanism of injury was a tree having fallen down on a person, I can start to think about things like spinal injuries and intracranial pressure and different types of internal injuries that I may not be able to see so easily. Very quickly, if possible, figure out what the mechanism of injury is. Now, I don't mean you're going to spend an hour investigating. I mean that in the time it takes you to put on your gloves, can I figure it out? If the answer is no, okay, don't worry about it, move on. The fourth thing that I'm dealing with is I'm dealing with how many victims do I have? How many bystanders do I have? How many rescuers do I have? How many people in my own group are there? So I'm trying to take account of all the different people in this situation. Now, when we talk about kind of that last part, there is an order of importance in terms of who's and what. You are the most important person in that scene, every single time. The second most important person in that scene are the people in your group, because you're either responsible for them or that's your group and you don't want them to get injured. One victim is a lot easier to treat than 2 victims or 3 victims or 4 victims or 5 victims. So first and foremost, protect yourself. Secondly, make sure your group is good. Thirdly, make sure the bystanders are good. Because again, bystanders can very quickly become victims, and 1 is a lot easier to treat than 5. And only once all of those 3 sets of people are good, can you start to deal with the victims. It sounds counterintuitive. Again, we have this idea of burning buildings, rushing in, but that's not first aid. And so, protect yourself, protect your group, protect the bystanders, and if all of these people are protected, go help the victims, if it's safe to do so, and you got your personal protective equipment. So again, I'm just going to repeat this to you. 4 things. First, personal protective equipment. Protect yourself. You are the most important. Second thing, is it safe? Again, protect yourself. You are the most important. Third thing is try to figure out, if you can, very, very quickly, what happened. Fourth thing is who's around. How many helpers do you have? How many bystanders do you have? How many victims do you have? And that is a scene survey.